Elon Musk is an absolute wonder. He's an alien who's chosen to bless us with his big brain. I don't know what the world would do without minds like Elon. He's like Da Vinci and Benjamin Franklin. If they were gay and able to have kids together. It's a shame we can't extend the lives of these people. If I had one word to define Elon, it would be...
My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization is assured.
So this is going to be a brief overview of a report that I've made in the form of a zine about a genius billionaire that we know as Elon Musk. A few sources I reference in this report are two YouTubers, that's Common Sense Skeptic and Thunderfoot, and one book, this is Ludicrous, by a Edward, he's a car blog writer, and a Tesla whistleblower known as Christina Balan. I reference a few more people and sources, but these are the biggest. Now, I'm doing this because really this whole concept of the Blackbird Renaissance is designed in the brand of repairing society. So I really do take this personally to see this this clown prancing around to be branded as a savior of humanity. And for anyone out there now, just don't be gaslit by Elon, people like Joe Rogan, or any of the other nut riders, basically. And the idea here is that when it came down to the inauguration, he did the salute. If this is for some reason up for debate for any reason with you, you can just simply look at the evidence available. Not going to waste time with people who want to defend him without actual evidence or proof. The chances are, if you're in this camp, you're either an investor in Tesla or one of Elon's ventures, or someone who has really no interest in taking part in the repair of society. Now, my opening chapter is on his faking of games. And this right here by itself, it's important because it doesn't seem like a big deal if you're looking from really the surface, right? Because this idea doesn't really come across as something that paints Elon's ventures, I would say, but the idea here is it really helps understand the branding that Elon's really going for here, because it's important enough to him to be really viewed as a person who is superior in games, but also to be viewed as superior in other facets as well.
Joe, I'm an alien, and I keep telling people I'm an alien, but they don't believe me.
And there's even like a interview with Joe Rogan where he says, hey, you have to be just superior in general if you're good at games.
I have a lifetime of playing video games. At one point I was, maybe one of the best Quake players in the world.
You're actually like a world-class, incredible video game player.
Yeah.
The Paragon board and the build, you're also an innovator there.
Yeah, I played a lot of video games.
You think about like StarCraft, any game where a lot of people are playing. To rise to the top, you have to be exceptional, period, as a human being.
Yeah.
There has to be something exceptional about you.
Yeah.
Are you in the top 20 in the world or top 20 wow, in Diablo?
Yeah.
And I think that really does encapsulate what Elon was going for here. And what's even more really concerning to me is that he thought really he had a perception of the rest of the world to actually stream himself playing this game. So either he was disillusioned enough to believe that nobody would notice, or that really just I mean, he had faith in his skill set for some reason, or he just really didn't have faith in the fact that there were people out there who actually knew how to play the game and would look at him like, what's going on? My next chapter addresses Twitter and this concept of him really being painted as a free speech warrior, I guess. And this idea of him purchasing Twitter, I remember seeing this and thinking that there was actually some possible good that could come of this, right? And, Elon seemed to be willing to really buck the system where nobody was platformed doing so, at least. And I'm starting to think now that this was more of an opportunity for Elon to get in the spotlight and boost his image. Now, this idea of being a free speech warrior, it is disturbing when you look at the history between him and Tesla, right? There's a few cases where it's just like very obvious. It becomes very obvious that he's not pro free speech. He actually definitely wants to limit speech.
Very important. I wish, the entire world to find out. Each time that you're signing an employment agreement with Tesla and with Musk, and not just with Tesla, Musk is asking this for every single person that he ever worked with, even if it's SpaceX or any other of his companies. He's forcing everybody to give up, and this is the pathetic part, their freedom of speech and the right to sue, the First and Seventh Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. Why do you think is that? Because without those, if they will not have the arbitration agreement, the whole smoke and mirrors that he paint around him, it will crumble to pieces.
And just one incident happened where in China where he actually had not him, but there was an incident. I'll say Tesla. I don't want to quite combine the two in this regard. I think it's important to leave that space and try to be objective here. Tesla sued a customer for reporting an accident where Tesla's brakes stopped working, and this happened in China. And if you don't know, Elon's very cozy with the administration in China, and that is to sue a customer for complaining about brakes that failed when, I believe it was the young lady's father was driving. But that was very, very troubling in itself. But also the whistleblower gives some accounts about some insight into the contracts that she was forced to sign while working with Tesla, and also insights in terms of how he controls people who do work for him.
And we got into a room, and in there they forced me to resign.
How did they force you to resign, Christina? Explain what the terms of this dismissal was.
They've told me that if I'm not resigning on the spot, they will deport my entire team because the entire team of Tesla, the entire interior team was backing me up. And their plan, Tesla's plan and legal department plan was to convince the entire team and myself to close the investigation, an internal investigation that we open in the company to fix a serious safety issue.
And this
Now, another thing regarding Twitter is this idea of this genius coming in and buying Twitter and transforming Twitter single-handedly. Well, there's a clip where he was questioned, and I think it was X Space or whatever it was called, but he was questioned about this.
I mean, I think, frankly, if you want to have a really high velocity of features, I think we'll just need to do a total rewrite of the whole thing.
Wait, seriously, a total rewrite. That's your prediction for velocity.
Yeah.
Well, when you say a total rewrite, do you mean starting with the skeleton, or a bunch of engineers sit down with a whiteboard and say, what is Twitter? Revolution or reform?
I just mean like literally like there's like you could either try to amend the crazy stack that exists, or rewrite it.
But when you say crazy stack, what do you mean? Like, break it down.
Have you seen George's like diagram?
No. I mean, like, what do you mean by crazy? No, seriously. Come on, buddy. Come on.
Who are you?
What do you mean? Who am I? I don't know. You gave me the fucking mic. I got no.
I didn't give you the mic.
Whoa! I'm doing the mic, and let's keep it civil in my space.
I mean, yeah.
Like what? No, man. You're in charge of the servers and the programming, whatever. Like, what is the stack? Elon?
Keep things technical in my space, please.
Take me from top to bottom. What does the stack look like right now? What's so crazy about it? What's so abnormal about this stack versus every other large-scale system on the planet, buddy? Come on, give it to me.
All right. So first off,
amazing. Wow, you're a jackass.
This particular coding around Twitter and what he was intending on doing, and I mean, he sounded like really a boss who was just really familiar with a few terms and really wanted to use those particular terms to really fend off anybody from questioning him. It didn't sound good. I really don't believe that he's a competent coder. And it's troubling because I feel like he, just like with the games, he thought either enough of himself or really just very little of the public to put himself out there as a coder and to be subject to questions like that. And this is something itself, but also this idea of Elon after some kind of debacle on X, or Twitter, he rolled out something called the X score, right? And this idea and this concept of the X score was something that was very similar to a social credit score. And this is interesting that this is something that he could just turn on, especially when you think now about how much data he has access to. Now, the longest chapter that I have here is the next chapter, which is literally on Tesla itself. And there are a lot of problems here. In terms of Tesla, it is unique. It is very unique, and it is unique amongst car manufacturers, and that is not that's not a compliment.
tried to fix everything before we got to Elon was with the vice president of engineering. And in there, he actually admitted that he was a safety issue. He said it. Of course, it's a safety issue. And guess what? He added, it's a safety issue bigger than Toyota recall.
I think you should definitely read into that and definitely understand that. And if you, I want to say also, if you're an investor, it may be best if you get out now, because the idea is that Tesla stock is built on the hype around Elon. That is Elon's biggest product right now. And I don't know if you guys know about this. Elizabeth Holmes was a pretty well-known fraud back in the day, but he's about to shadow her in terms of what's about to take place. It looks like, I would predict. And also there, and the guy who, and Elon didn't start Tesla as well. That's another myth. And
sure why he has to also say that he was a founder when he wasn't. I don't understand that.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
I remember finding that out and thinking, or being convinced by probably some Reddit forum online, that there was no real big deal, like nothing was done, and he came in. And he has interviews where he actually talks about coming in. But it was started by a guy named Martin Eberhard, right? And the idea here was, this idea of Tesla, it was built on this revolutionary battery system, right? Elon did not invent that battery system. Elon he made some contributions that basically made the idea of outsourcing a lot of the body very much impractical, to where it wasn't possible at a certain extent. And it is, I mean, you're never gonna see an affordable Tesla at this point with the way things are going now, unless there's a very big shift in the company. But the idea here is, there's a very troubling history around how Tesla survived, what they did to survive, and what they're continuing, or how they're continuing on in terms of the idea of, I mean, when it comes down to Silicon Valley, you'll realize that they need a lot of hype to really survive in a lot of cases. And it looks like Elon's taking that Silicon Valley culture to the car manufacturers, which is not recommended when you're looking at a computer and you're looking at coding. That's not a big deal. If you mess up something, somebody has to update a phone. That's nothing. When you're talking about software in cars, using self-driving, so they're not regulated like so your cars won't be regulated like autopilot, there are tremendous consequences that you can't simply say, oh, let me just control alt delete or something. I don't know what these weirdos do, but that idea of these guys getting on computers and thinking, oh, I can experiment here, I can move fast and break things. And then they get into different places and they decide to move fast and break things. And all of a sudden, you got a real problem on your hands. Now, like I said before, so many problems here. I mean, I'm just scratching the surface. And like I said, it's the longest chapter for a reason. But the Christina, I believe, maybe the first in a long line of whistleblowers.
I convinced the most senior federal judge of Washington state to void all the confidentiality clauses that Tesla and Musk had on me. And I convinced her to allow me to get, into a public court. Well, guess what? I won.
When people in Tesla, when people employed by Tesla start to see Christina's case, they may decide to say, hey, you know what? This contract that I'm under isn't even legal. And they'll start coming out one by one and start to basically deconstruct this myth that Elon really built around himself. It can get really ugly really fast. Now, and I'm sorry I can't go over everything regarding that, but please just take a look. My next chapter is SpaceX in general, right? In terms of the operation and the value of SpaceX, I think there is something concrete there, right? I think of course Elon's myth has really bled into probably the stocks of every single venture that he's public about, but the idea here is that there may be real value here, but that value may be due to Elon's first employer of SpaceX, which is Tom Mueller, right? And Tom Mueller is a guy who he's an enthusiast, right? If you're thinking about really constructing a rocket company, and let's say, for instance, hypothetically speaking, you don't know anything about rocket making, you find someone who's a rocket enthusiast who just doesn't have money, all of a sudden the perfect combination comes out. I'm, like I said, hypothetically speaking, but if I had money, then I would assume that. And it's also it's really funny if you look at Tom Mueller's interview. He actually talks it's kind of uncanny in terms of like how he talks versus how Elon talks. I'm just thinking like, wow, did you like see how someone who's like really smart talks and decide that you needed to talk like that? I don't know what that is, but either way, that's Tom's like he was playing with rockets, and it seems like Elon gave him funding to play with bigger rockets. So it seems like Tom may be like indebted to Elon in some cases, but in terms of there is some level of ingenuity there, but I think this idea of really where it comes down to what we need to worry about, a lot of this boils down to how little he thinks about people, because he's basically taking an entire town hostage, right? And this idea of taking the town hostage, I mean,
are we going to Mars or not? Right now, we sure are messing a lot of stuff up in our area here.
Brownsville, Texas sits at the southernmost tip of the United States.
Basically, you got a guy with money, and politicians who don't do anything without money. This is the combination that you get, I feel like. But anyway, he's basically like, there's a beach in town, and they're told like on the drop of a dime, like, hey, you can't go to this beach, or you have to evacuate the beach because SpaceX is launching a rocket or something like that. And it is so ridiculous. It's crazy, but I mean, that's what he does. And the patience to actually try to model the actual flight itself doesn't seem to be there, because he's launching things up. He's launching all these different, rockets, and they're blowing up at a pretty high-paced route, and he doesn't seem to take the same care that really probably I would expect. I haven't looked into this, but I would expect agencies like NASA to take. And that idea is blow up, if something blows up, then we just learn from that. And that could be valuable in some cases, but the problem is that he's doing this, and this is where airplanes fly. These are places, where air traffic occurs. So this debris could be a problem. And in terms of regulators or agencies that regulate them, I believe it's the FAA that regulated him. And I mean, he just has such disdain for that. It's just like, hey, look, I don't, like you're slowing things down. And that's, when you think about the idea of what could happen if debris hit a plane, and think about that particular idea of him being regulated based off of that, it's worrisome to see him so dismissive of really the idea of the regulations that take place in that particular case. Delusional is one way to describe it, and another way is just simply not really being able to see the whole picture and having this zoomed in understanding of the world. And it is, I don't think it's any less troubling either way. In any case, the next chapters, they are, I mean, they're not, like I said, Tesla was the biggest chapter, and there's also a few little tidbit chapters in, I'll say, with this idea of the Boring Company. A lot of us may have heard, they're gonna, I think Elon made a claim about, hey, we're gonna sell the bricks made from the tunnels that they dig, and that is not happening. I don't think it's gonna happen. But the idea here is like, when it comes down to tunnels and making tunnels and stuff like that, all of these, first off, all dirt isn't the same. When it comes down to geography, it's not going to be the same. You're not going to be able to just simply turn dirt into bricks. That's not how things work in terms of the actual manufacturing of a brick. But that idea of what's going on in terms of Boring Company outside of actually selling bricks is they've been denying contracts, right? And the idea here is when you get a hold of how regulators want to basically make sure that you know what you're doing under things like highways and stuff like that. You just don't want any part of it, I'm guessing. This is speculation. I don't know why he's denied, or why the Boring Company is denying contracts, but that idea is pretty much knowing how pesky Elon how the Elon treats the FAA as some kind of pesky regulatory agency. I imagine I don't think it's a far leap to think that. And then anyway, the Las Vegas project is the biggest project right now, right? They're talking about projects all over, and we'll see how that works. I think there's a project maybe in Dubai or something. I don't know. But right now, the Las Vegas project, it's essentially a bunch of Teslas on, was it self-drive they call it. They can't call it autopilot because then they'll be regulated like autopilot, like every other company that talks about a car that can drive itself. But anyway, that idea of the Las Vegas project is just a bunch of Teslas moving in a tunnel at 35 miles per hour. I think that is like, it's basically, if there was if there was light traffic above surface, then you can expect to see that kind of speed. But it's pretty bad. I was like thinking of the project is just wah wah. But it's not going good. But the idea here is it's a problem. It's not a problem. It's a kind of a disturbing idea for these promises to be made and this showmanship to come out here, and this is the end product that what we get. If anything, the idea of the next little tidbit chapter is Tesla solar roof, right? And there's a few things with this that this pattern is crazy. I noticed this more so by in writing the actual script for this video. The idea of how little Elon thinks of people, that's really the trend that I'm noticing here, because Tesla solar roof by itself is actually not necessarily it's not a bad idea, or I suppose a bad product in itself, right? It's the problem here is more so the idea of what happens after you get the Tesla solar roof installed, because this one particular guy was, he was doing a whole report about his experience, and he was just, he just seemed very non-biased about everything. But the idea here was, how do you get the Tesla roof and then the customer service basically drops off of a cliff? Like, that's interesting. And knowing how Elon's trying to put AI everywhere and have AI solve all the problems, it's really disturbing to think about the way in which he does this particular or he handles people. But the Tesla solar roof isn't a bad product. The Tesla solar roof was actually, it's a trend. I'm not as disturbed about this, because a fraudster is going to fraud. But the idea here is, like, he took an idea that was existing and kind of painted it as his own, right? And that was really the one thing. But in terms of the solar roof in general, we're probably not hearing about that as much, as because it's harder to break in this industry. It's not, he doesn't have one of those, like, he's not among the first mover advantages, right? When Martin Eberhard came out with the Tesla, that was kind of it was an innovative design in terms of a lot of car companies were giving up on the idea of an electric car. The idea of Elon coming in terms of with Tesla solar roof is, oh, okay, I got this new idea that's so innovative. But I went to an actual what is this, some kind of conference or something, where they were showing off solar panels or something, and this was before I even had any doubts about Elon. I was like, oh, okay, what about the Tesla solar roof? And the guy looked at me. He was just like, the look he gave was just like, it's not a product that we care about. It was just like everybody who knows anything of, or who's just remotely involved in the things that he talks about being like super genius in, are just looking at this like, yeah, no, not really. It's this is definitely not what it looks like. But this idea of his showmanship, it is, I would say, his most lucrative skill, honestly. And this idea of the last little mini chapter that I got in here is really revolving around Neuralink, and the idea here is, I mean, he wants to put a chip in people's brain. Now, this idea, I think what really brings it to a head for me in terms of how little Elon thinks about people is this one chapter, right? And this is one, the idea of DOGE, right? And this is, I think this is a joke that should really disqualify many of the televised news outlets when it comes down to having any sort of credibility here, right? Because when you look at particularly the DOGE website, and where he claims like, oh, we're so open and we're so, we're probably the most open the government's ever been. That website, when you look at it, it reminds me of, like, what is it, the Looney Tune cartoon, right, where like the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, where the Roadrunner would paint like a tunnel on the mountain face and then hide the real tunnel. Because when you look at the website, that's what it is. It's a facade. It is literally a facade. When you dig into the website and you go into the actual contracts, what's going to happen? It is not. It's like I'm kind of like balancing the idea of laughing with the idea of what the people that are going to be affected by what's taking place here. And that's kind of the concept, because it's just like you go through and it's just like you didn't even try with a lot of this stuff. You just went through and decided that, hey, these things, they need to go, right? No real understanding. And I think probably the thing that really makes me probably the most mad is just calling, like, the idea of calling like Medicaid a scam. I was just like, oh, you know what? Like, let me not get demonetized or whatever, or shadow banned or whatever. But that was just like so crazy to think that this was, he boldly came out and stated all these things, like, oh, there's all these people, that are getting money and they're not even alive. This is, you called it a pulse check or something. It's crazy. But this idea of, how little that he thinks about people in general is growing. It's a growing worry because of really just the idea of data and the data that he's collected. A lot of us are treating it like, oh, this is like a huge win that the court said it's illegal for him to have that data, and he's gonna have to delete everything. And I'm just like, let me make sure you guys understand something. Because the court says something does not mean that because the judge is not going to swing his magical gavel down and make all that data disappear, right? This guy is, I think I have serious doubts about his competence, right? So, like, in terms of when we think about things like the deep state, right? The quote-unquote deep state. You don't think about people like Elon who are just dancing in front of you in public, right? But the real issue that I have is not Elon. The people who may be using Elon as a fall guy, right? So this idea of particularly like J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel, particularly Peter Thiel. I feel like he might be the closest to the puppet master that I'm really looking at right now. But what happens to the data? Is Elon simply being painted as the fall guy for what happens, after that, right? And that's highly disturbing. I'm already reading reports where, Palantir is supposed to get a central database on everyone and things like that. It's getting real 1984-ish out there, and people think like, oh, this. On one side, you think, oh, he's a savior of humanity, the disillusioned people who say that. Then the other side is just like, oh, well, he's just an incompetent drug addict. When they don't see like this incompetent drug addict might have friends that are very competent, very much not. They don't care about the spotlight. They only care about power and how they get that power. That's where I'm kind of like, oh no, that's not. This isn't really looking good, right? And this kind of bleeds into the last chapter, I would say, the last series of chapter, I'll say, the life after DOGE, because we really do need to understand the idea that Elon was allowed to get to where he was with DOGE, right? The idea of, oh, I'm going to fire all these government employees and have a grand old time and, take my ketamine and fire as many people as possible, right? Like, this idea, like, I heard it painted as like, oh, it's a hostile takeover and Elon's sending his goons in and, they're destroying everything. A few things about that. One, when it comes down to that concept of quote-unquote goons, right? The goons, I don't care if they need a group to be tough. I don't care about any of that. What I'm saying is goons are the type of people that you worry about flourishing if society fails. These people would not. Elon and all of his underlings, Oompa Loompas running around there, they are not going to be high on any pecking order that's related to coming around and forcing and strong-arming anybody, right? That they're just not the guys, right? But they were allowed to be the people who would come in and do all these things. And I'm suspecting that the bureaucrats at the head of the Department of Defense had a deal to let this take place, right? Now, I haven't really looked into the heads who Elon had at that meeting, but something tells me that these aren't the guys who like go out for beers with everybody after, a long day of work, or go out to beers with the soldiers who've actually seen combat in any way, shape, or form. These are the people who go to dinner with people like Peter Thiel, and I don't know what is it, caviar or something? I don't know what rich people eat, but that's who they are, right? This idea of what's taking place, it's important for us to understand. Elon had a formal meeting with these people. There was no hostile takeover. There was nothing to where like, oh my goodness, he's in the Department of Defense. I think he got at some point he got access to weapons or something, weapons codes or something like that, or there was some overlap with some other agencies. But there was no hostile takeover at the Department of Defense. It was just simply, this is, a meeting where we need to have a formal conversation here, right? And it's very simple. Like, you all this prancing around, we understand it is theater. We're going to let you sit down with us and talk about something that we can, maybe form as acceptable for the public to hear. But if your guys come to our department, they might get blackbagged, like that's how it is. That's how, and everybody understood that, right? Everybody who was, everybody in that particular department knew, or everybody in the quote unquote DOGE knew that, hey, we don't go to the Department of Defense. And he even, at some point, I feel like this gave away the game so much. He went on Joe Rogan and he said, I think they would kill me if I got rid of all the waste, fraud, and abuse. And I'm like, man, like, you couldn't take one for the team? Like, come on. That's crazy. But seriously, he could. Like, that means that you weren't doing anything. That's what that means, right? Like, they killed, or allegedly, I don't even know if you have to say this anymore. They killed JFK because he was doing something. That's why he was killed. That's that's because he was doing something actually meaningful. Elon was not doing anything meaningful. He was doing theater. That was it. That was that whole performance. But I think we need to really be prepared about this idea, because the system, I think now, maybe it hasn't quite reached us yet in terms of this idea, but the system has failed us to, and I think people have been saying that for a while, but I think what we're looking at now is a failure to a greater extent, because when the department, or whatever, my imagined thought around the Department of Defense coming in, this idea of the Department of Defense, if they had a deal with Elon, these government employees were expendable to them. That's the idea, right? The idea is what they were doing was something that was not important to their particular goal and aim. And I want everybody to be prepared for the idea of, because we say the system has failed us in a lot of different ways, but right now I think we may experience something more closer to a more so collapse in terms of what to expect from this. And I want people to be prepared for that. And this, believe me, I hope I'm wrong. I don't want to be right about that. But the idea here is to slowly realize, or slowly start to kind of make preparations just in case. Because 20-something-year-old kids coming into an office saying you're fired to, like, people who've been there for 20-something years. People have been doing, like, government regulations and stuff like that. Even the FAA, you got planes crashing and you're trying to fire people at the FAA. That is so insane. But, I don't know what it is, but it feels like this could be really a front for what's really taking place behind the scenes.
Peter Thiel, who's the founder and really the person behind Palantir, is famous in the Valley for being a very outspoken conservative or a techno-libertarian. They have these really interesting, strange bedfellows in terms of leadership, but I think they have something in common with the old style Valley of the Valley of the Cold War era, in that there's this understanding that there is a partnership that's necessary between private industry and the defense establishment in order to get the best tech in the hands of the U.S. government. It's waxed and waned, but the business of war has always been Silicon Valley's business to some degree.
And like I said before, I think it could be like a full-on collapse, right? So we could be really experiencing a liquidation in terms of the government, because the military got more money, right? Something tells me that the bureaucrats at the military, which, I highly doubt that they've seen any combat. I highly doubt that. I don't know if anybody's really. I remember Seymour Hersh did a, you know, Seymour Hersh had a book where he exposed a lot of stuff in terms of what happened, and also I think it was Andrew Hubert, or I forgot who, but the idea was those guys up top, they don't even care about what happens on the actual battlefield. And what we're looking at now could be reflective of these guys coming to a deal with guys like Peter Thiel, and to make this make this really country take a new form and a new shape. And I don't want you guys to be surprised at that, whatever happens. And I think one of the main things that a lot of people need to realize, especially on the other side, right? So we're talking about right now, Elon, the Republicans and Elon's are kind of in the in the mix in terms of in power, but the idea of the Democrats. I seen a video recently. I think that first off, that handshake took place across aisles, right? The Department of Defense, and all the agencies. There were agencies that knew that play across aisles, right? Palantir, which is Peter Thiel's company, they will donate to whoever's in power. That's the idea. We don't care about the politics, right? We just the politics with the large P politics. Just make sure that we get power. And the idea here is that when you're looking at this particular situation, it's important that we understand that the entire government let this go. This wasn't just the crazy Republicans, right? This was I believe, a handshake that took place across the aisle. And I'm saying that to really get to this one point where there was a video of somebody who was going in. I wish I could tag his name. He was going in. It was funny. He was like joking that he was Elon and he was in the White House during some kind of like tour or something. But he got to a point to where he really. There was a point where he just dropped the charade when he talked to like politicians, and he asked them straight up. He says, "Well, what the fuck are you gonna do about it?" And it was just like those moments where you just look, where you're just looking at, Democrats or, representatives. Some of them, they had different things to say in regard to that. But I remember one where he was talking in his office. It was such a nice office, too. He was talking to this guy in his office, and the guy just leaned back in his chair. Well, we need the people to stand up. And I was like, it was like, oh, okay, I see. You're right. You're absolutely right. I completely wholeheartedly agreed with that statement. But I think really the difference in terms of what me agreeing with him and what he probably thinks is that the people standing up would leave him with any job or purpose in the government. Because I'll be honest with you, after this takes place, after this is taking place, it doesn't need to be, oh, the Democrats are back in power, right? Look, like we're not children running between two dysfunctional divorced parents, right? The idea here is that this is the ending point. There's no, we're going to go back to you guys and go back to sleep because you guys are in power. When it comes down to what's happening today, we need to understand that. We need to really ingrain that in terms of this guy, how far he's gotten, particularly you know, being a fraud outside the government is one thing. Being a fraud inside the government, I think, is a completely different thing, especially when you have a lot of people, you know, talking about what needs to take place in regard to people's livelihoods. This guy's, I think a lot of people maybe still fooled into thinking that this guy actually cares about regular people and sees eye to eye with them. But you don't get rich like Elon by looking around and thinking like how unfair it is that you can buy entire countries, and hardworking people will struggle to find the money to pay rent, right? What happens is you see your stock go up, the value of your companies go up. You ignore all the employees that work to make that happen, and you think, wow, I'm one of the chosen few. A lot of these billionaires, or that's a very generous assumption from me. We'll say a lot, not all right now, but a lot of these billionaires, they think that they are gods. Elon is not a savior of humanity. He's a...
I hope I haven't offended any Elon Musk reply guys saying, Elon, please, DOGE, pump it, my wife is gonna leave me. I believed in you, please, sir. And then I'll give him credit, the technology he knows about is hair plugs, right? Those shits, those look awesome, you know what I mean? I gotta hand it to my boy Elon on that one. Have you seen that one fucking picture where he looks like Nosferatu? He's just like, the man looks good, the plugs look good, I'll give him credit for that. But everything else he can suck my dick on.
Because now it's just like I want to be liked, and also be told that I'm funny.
Yeah.
I want to be I don't want to just be like, what I have isn't enough. I want people to tell me I'm a genius, tell me I'm cool.
Yeah.
And know that I'm funny and cool. It's such a...
Really, and he has like an 8-year-old sense of humor, which is funny. It's like,
yeah.
Like his cars fart. Like that's what an 8-year-old would do.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes a fart sound.
Yeah.
My car's flying around Uranus.
What's the video game Elon Musk says he plays? Did you hear he lied about that?
What?
He's like, he's not even that good at it. He was cheating, he had somebody else playing for him. He was video game lying.
That's
psychotic.
Really weird, yeah.
If that's true, I don't know the story.
Yeah.
If it's true that Elon Musk is video game lying,
Video game
that's
lying.
fucking weird.
Okay, I mean, this is the problem with these people. What kind of truck would Blade Runner drive? I mean, we're just handing the whole entire world over to like fucking nerds and freaks. We want the future to look like the future. First of all, the Cybertruck's disgusting. We can all kind of admit that. It's a heinous looking car. They explode. They go into trees and they explode and stuff. They're not good. They don't look dignified or classy on the road. I don't know who that appeals to. Now, I understand there's man-children out there that want to fly rockets to Mars because they can't fly their piss into a... No.
I'm trying to get regular people to stop yelling at each other and realize that it's a select few group of nerds, okay, eating raw almonds and doing their stupid workouts and everything and just competing with each other to have the biggest infinity pool, and the rest of us are getting pushed down. And they politicized the whole stupid thing, and we're falling for it.
And who's the they? Besides the people who eat almonds?
That idiot Elon Musk.
Oh.
That guy, like, he's gonna, like, who evidently is a Nazi. Like, I just refuse to believe that it was an accidental 2-time Sieg Heil. And he does it at a presidential inauguration. This is why I hate liberals. It's like liberals have no teeth whatsoever. They just go, oh my God, can you believe I'm getting out of the country? I'm just like, you're gonna leave the country because of one guy with dyed hair plugs and a laminated face who makes a bad car and has an obsolete social media platform? You're going to leave this... Why doesn't he leave? Why isn't he stopped? What are we so afraid of this guy who can't fight his way out of a wet paper bag?